Brian Myerson from Share Life Australia. Brian, this message about lifting organ donation rates isn't really new. We've been talking about it for quite some time. The numbers of people donating are increasing. They're at an all-time high, but the number of people needing transplants is also rising. It puzzles me why this is still an issue.
Unfortunately, Australia seems to lag substantially behind the rest of the world. We're, based on last year's figures, 22nd in the world. And there's not too many things that we come 22nd at. So there's a big question as to why we've got this wonderful health system. How come we have an organ donation rate that is not where you'd expect it to be?
You see the issues at closer range than most of us would.
Yep.
What do you think the problems are?
Well, we're achieving approximately half the rate per million population, and that's a general way of measuring it, compared to the world leaders. Now, there are a number of countries that have put in place very clear identified roles as to what should and shouldn't be done. And we're concerned that the structure and the roles and all that have not been adequately put in place at the moment. And as a result, we are experiencing an increase, but it's not the kind of increase that we believe could have been achieved in the last 4 years, given the very large substantial funding by the government, as well as the way that the leading countries are achieving those rates.
It's not necessarily an issue of just consent, though, is it? Because government figures suggest 80% of people consent to their organs being given. So why the breakdown there?
In fact, it's even higher. From what I understand, most surveys seem to suggest that almost 90% of the population support it. So it goes back to, it's got nothing to do with all the advertising and all that. It goes back to what happens in the hospitals. And that is the most essential part. It's what goes on in the hospitals, how those families whose loved ones are dying and have died, how they are treated, because that experience that they go through, to a large extent, determines how many families will consent and how many families won't. And if they go through this positive experience, it is more likely that they will consent.
So what would you say is a typical experience of a family who finds themselves in that situation right now?
Well, we're getting so many different mixed messages. We talk to a number of donor families, some that have agreed to donate and others that have not agreed to donate. And many of those who have not agreed to donate afterwards have terrible regrets. But because of the process that they went through in the hospitals, so many of them feel that they would have agreed had the processes in the hospital have been different, had the way that family was treated. And I can only tell you from talking to a number of families who have donated, they've got serious concerns about the way they're treated. Now, I know the authority will say straight away that they are implementing a new requesting program, but I'm very anxious about these things. I was one of the lucky people to get it, and I know that the numbers seem to suggest that close to 3 people die every day waiting for an organ. That's 1,000 people a year. Now, that's an amazing amount of people whose lives we can save if we increase the organ donation rate. So as far as I'm concerned, the way we treat families in the hospital at that terrible point in time when they have a last run is the major determinant as to whether they'll consent or not.
There's something there key to unlocking all of it. Brian Myerson from Share Life Australia, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.